Hey guys, today's video is going to be an in-depth exploration into what my novel Cold-Blooded is all about. I wanted to give you more of a detailed synopsis, let you know the types of things you can expect from this book, some of the themes that I explored, and the setting and the characters, and help you decide whether this might be something you might be interested in reading. If you're interested in reading the synopsis, which I encourage you to do before watching this video, I will put it below so you can read it and get the general gist of what this novel is about. This is my book right here, in case you haven't seen the cover yet. This is the hardcover. The hardcover is only going to be published in June the 13th, but it is already available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. I'm still waiting for my final hardcover proof to arrive in the post. It should be arriving tomorrow, so that's very exciting. But in the meantime, I wanted to just speak more about what this novel is about. That is what I'm going to be talking about today. I've got some bullet points, so hopefully I won't miss anything, but I'm going to try and structure this video as best I can. So genre-wise, it's sci-fi, action, adventure would be the main category if you were to try and define it. I think it's a lot more nuanced. There are a lot of themes that weave in and out. You've got the environmental aspects, where this novel is set after the effects of an extreme ice age. Snow and ice have taken over. Habitats have been threatened, in some cases destroyed entirely, and many towns have come to rely on these massive, powerful icebreaker ships to potentially seek out new habitable territories for them. And one of these icebreaker ships does play a very big role in the story. In fact, our protagonist and some friends end up stealing one of these ships and escaping into the unknown, and that's not a spoiler because it's essentially what is detailed in the synopsis. It's a cross-continental nautical adventure that starts off in England, south coast of England. They end up in Canada, they go across to Alaska, they end up in Iceland. It's sort of a northern hemisphere based novel where it's very cold and the terrain is unforgiving, the ocean is unforgiving, everything is dangerous, everything is full of ice and snow. And you take your life into your own hands if you want to explore the world, if you want to seek out one of these potentially more affluent colonies. You are going to have to be prepared for the worst because nature and the weather, the elements are unforgiving. So the adventure, first and foremost, is the main theme. Action comes in. Our protagonist is forced to tag along with a group of hackers who infiltrate a facility out in the mountains to do with artificial intelligence. There's a big plot that weaves in through the story regarding artificial intelligence and its effects, and although our protagonist is against technology, he ends up being roped into this. I wanted to put in a lot of description of the environment, not just the danger and the lethality of it, but the beauty as well, which our protagonist is constantly in awe of. He is terrified in a sense, but at the same time he's calmed, he's almost pacified by nature's beauty and by nature's disregard for the mortality of mankind. It just advances, it just does what it wants to do, it doesn't care about how fragile mankind is. Nature always triumphs, and he's in awe of this. So yeah, it's action, it's adventure. I would subcategorize it as environmental, having environmental themes. Romance-wise, my previous video that I did regarding what Cold-Blooded was about, I think I did that about a year ago, and I did mention that the book had no romance, and it's changed since then. The book progressed a lot further than I expected it to, and it took me down some unexpected twists and turns. And we do have some romance. It's very subtle, it's not a major plot point, but it makes up one of our protagonists' inner conflicts. He's got this conflict with hating technology but being tied up with it nonetheless, and wanting to escape into the wilderness where he dreams of living an off-grid life. And he also has this romantic tension with someone very close to him. The protagonist himself is asexual, so that sort of, I suppose, in a sense, is a spanner in the works, at least in his opinion. He doesn't want to subject this person who he's close to having to sacrifice something that they want in a relationship by having to conform to what he wants. So he sort of puts it to the side, but at the same time it ends up creeping back because ultimately these two people spend a lot of time together, and he ends up being forced to confront the way he feels and doing something about it. You know, it's not a romance novel. There's definitely a theme. There's a theme of romance, and that is explored in addition to the main plot, albeit in a more minor way. So getting into the characters now, our protagonist, who I've just been calling the protagonist for now, is Taliesin. He is 23 years old, he's a dock worker. He has a fear of the sea, which relates to something that happened to him when he was younger. He witnesses a murder up in the mountains and he ends up being framed for this murder himself. He ends up fleeing with his roommate and best friend Gray, who just refuses to let Taliesin go out into the wide, dangerous ocean by himself. They end up going with one of Taliesin's co-workers, Rez, who is fortunately more or less familiar with ship controls, how they work. She's able to get them away from danger, steer them across the ocean, she can navigate, she can do all of that. So they rely heavily on her to get them from A to B, even though they don't know where B is. So we've got Taliesin, Gray, and Rez. They are our main characters, and they all have their own stories, their own secrets. Rez, for the most part, is a very mysterious figure. She doesn't say a whole lot. She has some serious history that Taliesin wants to get to the bottom of, but he can't find the courage to ask. He really wants to win her trust, he wants to be friends, and she does not, for the most part, indulge him. And their relationship takes him to some pretty strange places across the world. Her history ends up playing a part, as does Gray's. You know, he's got his secrets. He is into tech, he's into computers in a not so legal way, as it were. And that is more or less the way in which Taliesin ends up caught up in this plan to infiltrate a top secret facility. Main characters aside, we have our antagonists. We have Kyla, who initially committed the murder and framed Taliesin. We have Ledger, who comes into play later on, and things end up coming full circle because people Taliesin expected never to see again end up turning up unexpectedly. There's this sense of there's a cyclical nature to this book. These figure skaters put their names into a pool of candidates to take part in essentially Olympic Games, but it's a more extreme version of the Olympics, and these games end up getting in the way of Taliesin and Gray's plan. It all comes together in a pretty interesting way, but I can't really get into it without giving away spoilers. This book was very interesting to write because I didn't know where it was going. It just emerged, and there are some twists and turns that I hope you will enjoy if you decide to read it. The main idea or concept that I wanted to bring across in Cold-Blooded is nature versus modernity. It's the sense of the so-called progressive, technology-obsessed side of society versus the more back to basics, live on the earth, stay off grid kind of people who are very opposed to the advancement. This is a major theme in the novel. It's Taliesin trying to decide for himself where he stands, because he knows what he stands for, but he also discovers that there are complications. If he wants to save the lives of people who he cares very much about, he is going to need to betray his inner values, his inner morals, and go to the dark side, so to speak, go to the side of technology, and sort of give up what he's always stood for in the hopes that he will be able to help these people. It's a massive dilemma for him, and he's very opinionated, he's very set in his ways, he knows what the right decision is, but he struggles to make the first steps in that direction for a while. And you know, towards the end he has to choose. He knows that he cannot linger on the periphery, he can't stay in this middle ground forever. He has to make a decision, and he has to figure out whether he wants to embrace modernity and all of its pitfalls, or whether he wants to just give it up and accepting what he will inevitably lose by rejecting the technology and all of the advancements and the scientific benefits that come with it. It's something that I really enjoyed exploring. Certainly through Taliesin's eyes, for the most part he does know deep down what is right and what he has to do. But it's all about getting there, it's all about the journey, meeting people whose lives revolve around very advanced technology, and meeting people who have rejected that entirely and reverted back to almost primitive basics It's just one big adventure with one slightly reticent protagonist caught up in the middle and wanting his little off-grid life, but ending up inevitably tumbling into adventure after adventure. If you want to read a book that describes a world where snow and ice have taken over, a world you get to witness from above, through the window of a helicopter, an ocean overtaken by ice you get to see from the bridge of an icebreaker ship. If you want to just read a story about a young man trying to find happiness, trying to find a sense of belonging in a crazy world full of crazy people, then you might want to check out Cold-Blooded. I'm really proud of this novel. It's taken me years to finish. I just wanted it to be the best that it could possibly be, and I'm really excited to share this with everyone. And if you do read it, as always, I'm really keen to hear what your thoughts are on it, and I will have all of the links down below as usual. I hope this video gave you a rough idea of what to expect. Trying to avoid spoilers usually ends up with a really messed up, unorganized type of video, but I hope this at least gave you a bit more of a taste than the synopsis, which is quite vague. So thanks for watching, and I will see you pretty shortly in the next video.